I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to highlights of the 2010 AutoGP Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Round 13 of the championship takes place on the historic circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Set in the beautiful Belgian countryside, this is a favourite circuit of many drivers and is considered to be one of the most challenging layouts on the calendar. Pole was yet again set by Bono Huis, running the fastest lap for the 6th time this season. Dennis Hurl backed up his result in Hungary, again qualifying in 2nd place. Roaldo Racing continued their strong qualifying form to lock out the 2nd row, and Mikko Puumalainen had one of his best qualifying performances of the season to start in 5th. With pole position being on the outside, a quick getaway was crucial for Huis, and while Hurl poked his nose at the inside, Bono carried enough speed around the outside to hold on to 1st position. There were no accidents through the sharp hairpin at La Source, though Disley dropped 2 positions and De Wit jumped from 9th to 7th. With enough momentum out of Eau Rouge, Hurl drafted behind Huis and made the pass into Les Camps, taking the lead for the 2nd time in as many rounds. Heading into the bus stop chicane, Huis then had to go defensive against Fredrik Nielsen, who was attempting an outside pass, but the Swede was squeezed out and dropped down several positions. 2 laps later, Huis easily drafted past Hurl along the Kemmel Straight, and almost immediately the Dutchman began to create a gap back to Hurl. Hurl would then lose out again on the Kemmel Straight, this time to Roaldo Racing's Mathieu Prévost. By this time, Huis was already looking like a driver in a league of his own. And meanwhile, further behind, a spectacular 4-way fight for 5th place was taking place. A small mistake from Kirchhoff allowed Poniatowski to slip past both Kirchhoff and De Wit, but a bold move from De Wit at Pouan caught Poniatowski by surprise, and now Nielsen was in the mix too. The next lap was one that Nielsen would rather forget. Off the racing line, Nielsen completely missed his braking point and ploughed into Atse Kirchhoff, sending both cars careering into the wall. After the first set of stops, Jaakko Mikkonen, who had made an early stop to avoid the traffic, managed to leapfrog Puumalainen. Hurl was again running a strategy requiring one less stop than his competitors, but Huis's incredible pace looked to be more than enough to ultimately guarantee the lead. Puumalainen quickly passed Mikkonen into the bus stop, but it would take the Finn several attempts to find a way around Prévost. Despite some clever defensive driving from the Roaldo Racing driver, Puumalainen eventually made it past to move up into 3rd place. At the halfway point of the race, Huis caught and sailed past Hurl out of Eau Rouge to retake the lead. Hurl was still yet to make his one and only pit stop though. Meanwhile, Patrick De Wit and Karel Poniatowski continued their fight for 6th place, with De Wit making an aggressive pass into La Source, again catching Poniatowski by surprise. And further behind, both Ronnie Hannell and Rasmus Tali had quietly slipped into the top 10 after starting from the pit lane. At the 2nd set of stops, Prévost was leapfrogged by Mikkonen, and he soon fell into the hands of De Wit. Despite running strongly in 2nd place earlier in the race, Prévost seemed to be struggling, and a small mistake was all the invitation De Wit needed to overtake the Frenchman. On lap 32, Jaakko Mikkonen finally managed to get a run on Mikko Puumalainen, but he inexplicably moved over on Puumalainen in the braking zone, causing contact and resulting in both drivers having to make a long excursion over the grass. Puumalainen's dangerous track re-entry required a quick reaction from Prévost. Unfortunately, no contact was made. A desperate Puumalainen quickly passed Prévost into La Source, but passing De Wit would take some extra work. After some close side-by-side racing with De Wit, Puumalainen eventually made it through into the bus stop. With Prévost slowing down in the closing stages, he had both Hannell and Tali on his rear wing at the start of the final lap, and in a similar move to Mikkonen's earlier on in the race, Prévost squeezed out Hannell into Les Camps, forcing the German onto the grass where he skillfully avoided losing control. But at the front, and with another utterly dominating performance, Bono Huis drove the perfect race weekend with pole position, the fastest lap, and a clear victory to extend his championship lead. And as Dennis Hurl crossed the line for 2nd, Jaakko Mikkonen obligingly gave up his podium position to Mikko Puumalainen as an apology for the earlier contact. Meanwhile, Hannell had somehow stayed in touch with both Prévost and Tali, and after slipstreaming past his teammate, he made a desperate pass into the final chicane. And he just managed to beat Prévost to the line to take 6th. Prévost was then penalised with 30 seconds added to his race time after the race, due to the earlier contact with Hannell. Patrick De Wit finished in 5th place, achieving his best result since round 4, and further behind, Blair Disley finished in 8th position, keeping himself inside the top 10 of the championship standings. John-Eric Saxon crossed the line in the top 10 for the 7th time this season. The Spa-Francorchamps circuit claimed many victims, with only 12 drivers making the finish line. As Bruno Marquez was absent from this race, Bono Ruiz has again added 25 points to the gap over second position, and with a 79-point lead, the championship is now almost in his hands. Rasmus Daly has edged closer to Marquez, now just 11 points behind. The fight for fourth place could become very interesting in the final 5 rounds, with Mikkonen, Hanel and Puumalainen separated by just 16 points. Precision Motorsports now have an incredible 125-point lead over Twister, a gap equivalent to 5 victories. Macquarie are no doubt eyeing up the second position, but they still have a 68-point gap to close down to Twister. SB Motorsports remain firmly in 4th position, ahead of Go Speed Racing in 5th. The next round will be the Italian Grand Prix from Monza. Tune in at 5:25 GMT on the 6th of September for the multi-BC broadcast. To watch the action live, go to www.formula-simracing.net and follow the links to the live broadcast. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I'm Jack Nichols, and we'll see you in Monza for round 14 of the AutoGP Formula Sim Racing World Championship.